How's it going, everyone? Nick from Comic Culture here. Time for Nick at Night, my weekly comic book review show. Let's get into the books I read this week. Gonna go ahead and put my grading scale up. You know how this works. When I introduce a book, I'm gonna put the cover of the book on the grading scale so you can see how they all stack up against each other. So let's get into DC first with Wonder Woman issue number 3 from Tom King. Now, issue number 1 was kind of controversial. It had an interesting start to it. Interesting problem, but it was kind of all over the place in my opinion. So issue 2 came and I was excited for them to kind of rein it all back together, but it was a big showcase of power of Wonder Woman, which was really cool to see, but like I was hoping for a little bit more progression in the story. So now we have issue number 3 and it's a little mixture of both, honestly. There's lots of action in here. Lots of drama, lots of suspense, lots of build-up, cool angles, cool perspectives, build up to different battles, and it's also a showcase of Wonder Woman's power in general. She does get a little bit more information on this rogue Amazon who's been taking out all these different people. There's a really cool twist at the end. We'll see what that does. There's an interesting flash forward as well to see where that story is going to go eventually, and I'm actually excited for maybe that spin-off at some point. Let me know what you guys think about that, because that was really cool. Artistically speaking, this is a beautiful, beautiful book. So well done, man. The colors on here, the art, just the different perspectives and stuff. Like, there's a lot of interesting shots in here, multi-panel grids, and some really cool close-ups, things like that. It's just beautifully drawn. There's a couple great double page spreads as well that are kind of shocking, and it's like, man, of course I should have saw that coming, but I completely didn't. So you know what, at the end of the day, I had a really good time reading this book. We'll see if the story is not going to get in the way. You know what I mean? Art-wise, it's beautiful. Interesting concept. Cool threads all over the place. Interesting new characters. But like, don't let the story get into the way of this, right? So, issue number 3, pretty good. Probably my favorite one so far. What'd you guys think? Then over in Marvel, we have the Incredible Hulk issue number 6. I've been pretty down on this series so far. It's good. It's fine. But I just need it to progress. We're 6 issues in right now. We know we have this ultimate evil who's calling upon the demons of the world to rise up and, I don't know, capture the Hulk for himself or something like that. Of course, we have our typical Hulk and Banner issues going on right now. One of them wants to be in control all the time. Banner's afraid of the Hulk destroying everything. Hulk's tired of Banner keeping him back or holding him back and everything. So we have that whole dynamic still going on. But in issue number 6, we have a cool introduction to this new Ghost Rider character. Cool background story as well, and we get a little fight at the end. Secondly, Nick Klein is back in this book, and it is a well-received reunion here. So good. Love his art style. A lot of gruesome moments in here, of course. Gnarly transformations. Then you throw Ghost Rider in on this as well, and you get a little battle between those two, leaving off on a cliffhanger. We're going to see more of that in the future issues. Man, this issue is probably my favorite one so far, issue number 6. But again, it didn't push the story forward at all. It's just introducing more people, and they're still on the run. So we'll see where the grand scheme, let's see what the grand scheme is in the future. But Ghost Rider and Hulk, definitely love that. All right, we're gonna go into some indie books. We're gonna start with Lifeboat issue number 1 from Critical Entertainment. This book was awesome. First, I love the art in here. It is amazing. It uses some techniques that I don't quite recognize, but I can imagine how it's done. You can see like this helm right here has this like translucent effect, but it obviously has a little ring to it and everything. And the art and coloring is so cool inside this book. If you're a fan of, you know, like space exploration or colonies traveling around, using up all of its resources, kind of in dire straits, and you want to see like how humanity can pull through, the different relationships between people, how they all connect, the different roles people play in this new society, and ultimately, you know, is there hope to survive? That's what this book is all about, using up all the natural resources around you to kind of keep pushing forward, drive that long chain of humanity with you, and just try to like survive at the end of the day. That's what this book is all about. Absolutely loved it. It was so cool. There's lots of interesting like inner dialogue as well. And yeah, it just makes you think. This is a really interesting book for sure. Really good art, like I said before. So definitely check out Lifeboat if you haven't yet, from Critical Entertainment. Really interesting book. I don't know if it's going to be an issue, like a series, an ongoing thing. The ending was a little bit elusive, so we're going to see if it continues. If it doesn't, it works great as a one-shot as well, so definitely check it out. Next, we have Zoe Thorogood's Back to School Hack Slash issue number 2. Cool issue number 1. I like her style. She's got a really cool art style. It's really poppy, it's bubbly, it's got some interesting, like real thin lines. The coloring always pops as well. So like I'm really digging her art style, especially in this series where everything is bubbly and vibrant, and we have a lot of different characters with their different moods and stuff. So she kind of customizes the look, the feel, the colors to that character, and I love that. It's basically like an X-Men book where you have a bunch of different people, different backgrounds, different power sets or focuses, all living inside this mansion, getting orders from this person who runs it, and they're taking out all these slashers that are all over the place. Whether they're monsters or demented people or possessed people, they kind of keep in tune with that community, and they go out as a team and they hunt down these different killers. This one was really cool because it was a game programmer who programmed this one game. It kind of like blew up. He got super popular. He didn't know how to like finish the game out. All these different iterations were coming out, and it became larger than life. He couldn't take it anymore, so he programmed like this killer part inside of it, and it was taking people out, so they have to infiltrate this game in a really interesting way. So if you're into that kind of stuff, I would recommend this book for sure. Again, artistically, it's just a really cool book to look at, and yeah, props to Zoe for doing stuff like this. There are some pacing issues or some liberties that she takes to get from one scene to the other. Whatever, I looked over it, but it is there. Still a fun ride at the end of the day. So if you like those team-up X-Men style books, you might dig this one, so check it out. Mark Millar's Big Game Conclusion right here. I didn't cover this last week because I completely forgot to add it to my review pile, but I read it last week. This book is incredible. So it does help, since this is the conclusion, it does help to know about Mark Millar's all of his other projects, and there's tons of them. I think in the back of this book, he actually goes over the reading order. So if you want to know everything about this universe, he gives you a start and stop for this universe right here. Now, I've only read probably a quarter of these books, I would say, and I still got the basic premise of it. And when these people you don't know, when they show up into the story, they impact the story in a way that you can just make assumptions on what their powers or abilities or who they are. You kind of make those assumptions, but I will say it does lack that punch, that bang when they do arrive. You really don't feel anything. You mostly feel like, oh, who's that guy? I wonder what they're from, you know? And then you immediately realize that you're missing a chunk of the story. So there is that. There is some timey-wimey stuff that they do to resolve this issue. We basically have this real ancient evil bad coming to present day to take on our villains here, courtesy of Hit Girl, because she got sent back in time in earlier issues. And because there's some timey-wimey stuff going on, we're able to rally all the hero forces. We've learned from our previous mistakes. We learned how they all died, and they kind of rectify that, and they pull everything forward. Really cool stuff, tons of action, great like double page spreads, very, very well drawn. This is an incredibly well drawn book. Love the coloring in here too. It is just amazing, and it pops, and it's so cool. Love this one a lot. So again, if you're not super familiar with the Mark Millar universe, you're going to be fine still. You're going to miss a lot of the nuances like I did, but it's still a really cool ride. It's good, something good to build up into. Just read like his most recent stuff, maybe a little bit of Magic Order, some Wanted, things like that. Just look up his most recent stuff and you'll be fine. You're going to miss the nuances, like I said, but at the end of the day, it's still a really cool book. And yeah, man, what a great universe he created and a cool story to play around in here. So really good job. Check it out. The Holy Roller issue number 1. We have a heck of a collaboration on here on the writing front. Interesting book for sure. I didn't know what to expect with this book. Basically, we have a superhero who uses a bowling ball. This is like some Mystery Men stuff right here, but it's a completely different story. It's very interesting. The main character is obviously modeled after Andy Samberg, which is totally fine. There's also some other cameos in here, or maybe some influences on some character design, and that was really interesting. So this character basically is growing up. His father's a famous bowler, and he becomes a little bit of estranged, travels the world, things like that, reunites with his father years later after he's kind of like lost his ways, he's lost his religion, he doesn't quite have direction in his life, and he has this conversation with his father, and his father is sick and he doesn't have a lot of time left, and so they have this reunion, right? And of course, you know, this reunion goes bad, but dad passes down this bowling ball. We don't quite know everything about this bowling ball. We see it in action later, but him having gone back to his hometown, of course, all the local bullies catch up with them and things like that. And, you know, they kind of pick up right where they left off when they were kids. And a lot of gruesome stuff happens at the end here. And so our hero has to, you know, step up and take these bad guys / bullies out at the end. This book's really cool, though, because it has a lot of reflection. It's got a lot of comedic moments. The art is really killer in here as well. Rick Remender's on here. It's like, it's in good hands, I think. It's gonna be a funny book, but it's also gonna be serious. There's gonna be lots of action, I can just tell. So, Holy Roller, didn't expect much, but actually enjoyed it quite a lot. Kill Your Darlings, issue number 3. I've been loving this series so far. We have issue number 3 out right now. Really cool book. Basic premise is, I can assume right now that the land is kind of haunted from some kind of witch magic. This girl grows up in it with her mom. She has an overactive imagination. She creates all these regular characters that she plays with in her childhood. Mom eventually dies in this tragedy. It's blamed on her. She goes away at some juvenile facility. Years go by, and her imagination actually comes to life and rescues her from her imprisonment, in other words. And now she's learning that all the things that she created when she was a kid, all that stuff is real and is manifested, and there's a world that she's exploring, and there's a real bad evil that is taking everything out, and she needs to team up with some of her friends and these creatures she's created to take on this threat. So it's really interesting story. It's kind of a combination of a lot of different things now that I'm thinking about it, but the execution's done in a way that it feels original. The art in here is really cool as well. Really good use of color. The art style is something I'm just not used to, and it's really cool to see. It has this digital vibe to it, and it has really good use of the pages. I love when they're creative and they do cool stuff like this, where we're going from one realm to the next, and it kind of uses the horizontal line to crash through that reality, and then they come back up where they started. It's a really interesting use of the page, and I wish we saw more of that besides just like tilted panels and things like that. Like, use the canvas, man. Use it to your advantage. They certainly do here. Really cool book. Issue number 3, still one of my favorite books out there right now. Check this one out. James Tynion and Martin Simmons on Universal Monsters Dracula issue number 2. Gorgeous, gorgeous book so far. I think when I read the first issue, I didn't appreciate it as much on the first read. I read it again and I was in awe with the art the entire time, but the story is really creepy as well. I was so consumed by how beautiful the art was, I was almost ignoring the story in a way, and I reread it a couple times. Loved it. Issue number 2 is no exception. And yeah, the art continues to be absolutely killer in this book. You know, we were introduced to a couple female characters in the first issue. They have this infatuation with this stranger, this Count from Transylvania. They have this obsession with this guy, kind of like chatting about him on the side, saying about how handsome and mysterious and dark this person is. Of course, we know that's probably Dracula, and he's influencing them with all of his dark magic and whatnot. And so we get to see that play out a little bit more. We get to meet a couple more scientists that are one more scientist who's very well known in this culture, in this story in general. He's interacting with some of the local doctors right now, and they're having some interesting conversation after dinner with some drinks. And so it's like, it's slowly building up this really creepy story. The art is absolutely incredible in this book once again. So man, there's just so many cool things happening in this book, and a lot of little shocking moments as well. So yeah, totally digging this one. Definitely be checking this one out if you're not. I think it would make a great hardcover collected oversized edition as well. That would be so cool to see. Hopefully they do that. Universal Monster Dracula issue number 2. Definitely check it out. Void Rivals issue number 6. Another great book in the Energon universe. Void Rivals is interesting because I feel like it had all the hype when it first came out. Now that Transformers is out, now that Duke is coming out, it's kind of, in my mind, taken the backseat a little bit, because it's a bunch of characters that we don't quite know yet, but we know the whole universe is connected. We're still trying to figure out exactly how it's all connected and when in time, in space, does this story take place? Because I have my assumptions based on issue number 1 of this book and Transformers, because there's a common character in both of those books. With that said, as a standalone, because that's practically what it is, with just a few Easter eggs here and there, still a really interesting, like sci-fi, fantasy-ish kind of a book. So if you're into those kinds of book, this is still going to be a really cool read. It's about 2 factions that are warring. They have more in common than they think, but the powers that be are trying to hide all that so that this war can just constantly go on, I assume because it brings them profit in some kind of a way. But again, there's some Easter eggs they throw in here and there, and there's some seeds they plant in this book that I'm sure we're going to mature into some other kind of Easter eggs. So really cool art, exciting. It's connected. We don't quite exactly know what that means just yet about how connected it all is, but interested to see where it goes. Robert Kirkman's doing a crazy job on this book. Well drawn. Check it out. All right, next we have Sean Murphy's Plot Holes. This is a great series, very meta. It was started as a Kickstarter. It's going to single issue now. This is the first time I've read it all the way through, or not all the way through, up until this point rather. And really cool book. Again, it's kind of about this team who can infiltrate different genres, different stories. It's kind of like a Matrix situation. There is a real world, but in the real world, all these other alternate worlds spin off in form of books and manga, everything else, and this team is hyper aware of that. They can travel through and stop these evils from basically destroying everything. And their one of their initial jobs was to edit books from the inside. So if a writer or something like that makes a mistake, books aren't selling well, they change key things in the plot and the story and the writing to make things survive and not get purged over time. But in this issue, we're actually dealing with the fact that one of our former members of our team has kind of synced up or merged with this great evil bookworm who's going through and destroying all this literature. And so our team right here is putting together a plan, trying to steal very specific artifacts that they can use in combination to take out this bookworm and get their former teammate back. Of course, there's a lot of different relationships and things like that involved, which makes the book really interested and it makes it feel connected. And, you know, it feels like a bigger universe. Cool cast of characters, really interesting artwork, fun, exciting, lots of action. So Plot Holes continues to be strong and I'm digging it. All right, last book we got this week was from Distillery. We have Somna issue number 1. So this book was crazy good. If you've never had to take a cold shower after a comic, this one might get you to that point because there is a lot of salacious stuff happening inside here. As far as the setting goes, think about like Salem Witch Trial, that era, that mindset, that kind of a culture. We're following our female lead right here. Her husband is actually part of for lack of a better term, kind of like a witch hunt, right? He finds, he identifies, and he participates in the ceremony of like getting rid of them, right? The execution phase. And so they recently found a witch, presumably a witch. She was taken over by the darkness, and they've executed her. The girl in this story right here, she's kind of consumed with like this lust, this desire, and she's fulfilling it somewhat inside of her dreams. There's this evil spirit that infiltrates her dreams, kind of pushes her to the edge. She knows it's wrong. She kind of backs out a little bit. When she tries to approach her husband with these urges, these desires, he's really too consumed with everything he's doing right now. And in light of the newly found and executed witch, there's a lot of work to be done. So he's kind of ignoring her in a way, and she's trying to maybe go somewhere else for this relief. So we're going to see where the story goes for sure. Art-wise, beautiful book. There's lots of different styles inside this book. There's this awake state, which is a really cool way to show the contrast between that and the dream state. I'm trying to even show you I'm trying to find a page I can even show you, but here's like here's like at nighttime when she's talking to her husband about the nightmares or whatever that she has. But then she has this dream state where it kind of all goes Martin Simmons on you a little bit. And so we have Tula on this, doing a great job with the art. And again, that contrast between the day and night and the dream state is what really sells the book for sure. Really cool characters in here too. Little twists and turns. It's a longer read for sure. It's got lots of mature themes, obviously, inside this book. It'll push you to the edge for sure. And very interesting book. Cool. I can't wait to see where it goes. I don't know if this book has like a lot of places it can go, honestly. There's obviously some kind of a demon. There's some kind of possession. We're dealing with witch trial era. So like it's dangerous to have these connections with like spirits and ghosts and things like that. So we'll see where it goes eventually. And yeah, issue number 1, man. Quite a read. Cold shower for sure. Did you guys read it? What'd you think? So guys, that's everything I read this week. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know down below in the comments what you read and what your favorite books of the week were. And while you're down there, hit the like button, subscribe button, and check out the membership button. I would really appreciate it. But as always, thank you again for watching. We'll see you in the comments.